Hi everyone, I'm Adriano Ercolani of Cinema Daily US. I'm here with Ron Frank and Glenn Kirschbaum, director and screenwriter of Remembering Gene Wilder. The documentary is gonna hit theaters in New York on March 15th. And I would like to start talking about the balance between comedy and drama, because for me, the best comic actors are the ones who actually can make you laugh about something that most likely you shouldn't laugh about. And Gene Wilder was definitely one of them. And actually, your documentary explores really well the balance between comic, light, and deep, and sadness and drama. So how do you work in order to find this balance in your work?
Should I go first?
Take it away, Ron.
Well, I would say that in terms of looking at Gene, Gene did some drama early on in his career on stage. But I think he found himself more comfortable and at home as a comedic actor, not a comedian, but a comedic actor. And one of the things that was useful for him is having that dramatic background, because he went to, the typical schools in New York with some major stars, people who became major stars. He used that experience, particularly the drama experience, in his comedy, in his comedy films, to make it real. And that's what he believed in. That's what his idol was. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin could bring tears to your eyes and make you laugh. And I think that was Gene's goal, is to bring up the emotion in his roles, and whether that's, a tear or two or a wonderful laugh. I think he favored laughter more than tears, but that was his experience.
Right. I think one of the stories that he has repeated many times, it was in his book and we've included it in our film, is the fact that when he was 8 years old, his mother had a heart attack, and her heart specialist said to Gene, "Don't upset your mother. You could kill her, make her laugh." And I think from that age, he realized that laughter was the best medicine. And so, yes, as Ron said, he was trained as a stage performer. He certainly could do drama, but I think he certainly preferred comedy and the thrill of making people laugh.
Mm-hmm. Has there been something when you started writing the screenplay and watching the footage and preparing the whole project that actually surprised you about Gene Wilder, something that you didn't know, and you were like, oh, maybe these will take some depth to this documentary? Sure.
Well, one of the stories that came out that we weren't aware of was that Joseph E. Levine, the producer of The Producers, that after he had seen the first set of dailies, he came to Mel Brooks and was ready to fire Gene. And Mel, rose to Gene's defense. And so what could have happened was we could have been deprived of the genius of Gene Wilder very easily if Mel had followed what his instructions were, which were to get rid of Gene Wilder.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say that Joe Levine, when he said get rid of him, replace him, Mel just agreed and ignored the entire situation, and basically had Gene come in every day to do his acting, and until the movie was halfway shot, and Mel said it's too expensive to replace him. We got to keep him. And I think the greatest comeback for Gene was that he got an Oscar nomination for that role. So I guess Mel was correct in his instincts, and Joe Levine was not.
Definitely not. Watching Gene Wilder's movie, I understood in some way that it was unique because in some way the timing of his comic, of being a comic actor, most of the times he was able to, in some way, I don't know how to express it, to delay a punchline or a joke or just 1 second in order for the audience to enter and understand the absurdity, the surrealism of his jokes. How do you think he developed this very specific way of telling jokes and punching lines and acting?
I think he was the guy who could give the longest takes without a word. There's an example which we did not include in the film. We had it in one version, but if you go and see Everything You Want to Know About Sex, where Gene plays a doctor and his patient comes, this guy comes from Armenia and he sits with Gene, and Gene says, "What seems to be the problem?" And the patient says, "I'm in love with a sheep." And there's this long take that lasts, I don't know, 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Gene's just looking around. He can't believe what he just heard, but he makes it entertaining. I mean, you are hooked. You're watching him and feeling for him. I'm in love with a sheep. And, the whole premise of that film is an absurdity. I mean, that part of the film. But I think Gene's gift was to take his time. He didn't rush. And he got, I mean, another scene when he's talking to Marty Feldman in Young Frankenstein about whose brain did you put in the monster. He takes his time, he's very calm, and then he explodes. But that calmness, Alan Alda tells us in our movie, was a magical trait of Gene, to be able to be quiet at the quiet, subtle moments and then go from an extreme in the other direction.
I think Gene was a very intelligent performer. He understood human emotion. And so in that scene that Ron just described, we as the audience, we know the abnormal brain is inside the monster. And it's such a joy to watch Gene's reaction. He says, "I'm not going to get angry." And we know darn well he's going to get more than angry, which of course he does.
I think another of his best qualities was the one he was capable to elevate his partner's comic side so much. Just think about Cleveland Little in Blazing Saddle. It's something that really is the best supporting actor for the main character. And so, but also, I don't know, Marty Feldman, Richard Pryor, all of them. It was important for him in order to find the right balance, the right tone, in order to develop this kind of alchemy with his partners on set.
I think Gene had an uncanny ability to know an actor and their instincts very well. He was, he played off of Richard Pryor brilliantly on set. They had an improvisational relationship, which was spontaneous. But I think Gene had an instinct to know where to go with somebody like Richard. With Carol Kane, he instinctually knew that this dramatic actress, who was a serious actress who just got an Oscar nomination for her serious acting, was funny. What could entertain people and could play humor, and he played off of that very well. And of course, in Young Frankenstein, I mean, he wanted to work with Marty Feldman. It was ironic that his agent, Mike Medavoy, called and said, "Marty's in my office, and would you like to is there something that you could do with him and Peter?" So I think Gene knew, he had an instinct for where an actor would take a particular scene and style of acting, and was able to bounce off of that really well.
I think Gene was a very generous performer. He allowed others to have the punchline, to have the laugh. if you go back to Willy Wonka, even the friendship that he developed with Peter Ostrom, who was 12 years old at the time, and Peter picked up on Gene's decency and the fact that Gene wanted to collaborate with him and work with him. When we talked to people who acted with Gene in Blazing Saddles, he would go out of his way to make sure that everybody felt comfortable and gave their best. And that's just who he was. He was a giving, kind, loving person on camera and off.
Absolutely. And your documentary actually shows that pretty well. He was also a director. He directed several movies. Which was, in your opinion, the best quality of Gene Wilder as a director?
The best quality? You mean on screen?
Yeah.
I think it's his timing. He had incredible sense of timing and knew when to go subtle and when to go over the top, even though Mel would instruct him as such. And he was able to, and I'm sure on a set, if I had worked with him on a set, the idea that, Gene was no drama on set. I mean, Richard Pryor was probably the opposite. And there was no drama when it came to Gene on set. He did everything professionally and executed his roles, without any problems, any drama. I love to watch his eyes at work, particularly when they shift, if there was some problem, or some moment in acting. I think he led with his eyes. And a director once told me that, if you look in an actor's eyes, it's really the best way to tell their ability to see if somebody's home. You can tell if there's something inside. And Gene had something inside, and you can just tell by his eyes and the way he worked with his eyes.
This is a tricky question. Is there, in your opinion, a contemporary actor that in some way is inspired by Gene Wilder, in some way honors Gene Wilder's legacy as an actor?
Tricky questions I'm giving to Glenn. No, I'm kidding. But I could tell you this, because I've thought about this before. I think, if there's a contemporary actor that resembles Gene, if you can say that or assume some of his characteristics, Ben Stiller comes to mind. Ben worshiped Gene, actually. He really liked Gene, and his way of handling comedy, because he too was a comedic actor, and I think he could also do drama. He had that versatility, and so that's one person. I don't know if any other names for you, Glenn. That's one that comes from me.
I know the Star of the Bear. Everyone says that when the Gene Wilder documentary is done, or a film about Gene's life, that he should play the role. I think there's again, as Ron said, it's the decency, the kindness, the comedic timing. Ben Stiller is a wonderful example, and no one else comes to mind right now.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm really happy you mentioned Ben Stiller, because I think, for example, that the way Ben Stiller directed Will Ferrell and the first Zoolander, if you see Mugatu's character, his timing about delivering the jokes, it really reminded me. I really recall some of Gene Wilder movies. And let me ask you one last question. And if you could make a top 3 of your favorite Gene Wilder movies, please deliver.
We've had this question many times. I personally am a Young Frankenstein man. I just think it was brilliantly written, brilliantly executed. That was Gene's. Gene, as much as when you see the film, Mel Brooks has the big name at the beginning, it was Gene's production. It was Gene's creation. And Mel, to his credit, in his interview, gives Gene so much of the credit. So I'm a young Frankenstein man, followed by the producers, and then the Frisco Kid. Those are my 3 favorites.
For me, same 3 films. I guess the order's a little bit different, but I really like Frisco Kid. That I thought Gene was extremely convincing as a rabbi. He studied for it with a rabbi to get the Yiddish accent right. So I'm partial to that film. Plus, he connected with it in a personal way, being Jewish. I'm Jewish. I also connect with it. And the premise is so interesting. Turn of the century rabbi going across the country, led by, how should I put it, a volatile Harrison Ford who kept erupting all the time. Gene played an innocent, very innocent person in that movie, and tells us in our film that he was influenced by his father. His father had that kind of innocence, being a Russian immigrant, spoke Yiddish, and that influenced him a lot. So he had influences from his mother and his father. So that was that. And Young Frankenstein, of course, I love that, and his role in that, and the producers. The producers, Mel won for best screenplay and deserved it. It's a well-written, great premise, and Mel casting Zero Mostel against Gene Wilder was brilliant. I mean, I don't think they can reproduce the producers as many times, but it'll never equal that original one. I hope I didn't insult anybody, but you know, to me, that is really, that was genius. The 2 of them.
Yeah, for us, Adriano, this was such an honor to work on this film. These were people that we grew up admiring, and to meet Mel and to, you know, interview Alan Alda, who was a personal friend of Gene's. I mean, it to us, there was a lot of pressure. We wanted to deliver the goods. We wanted to give him the recognition that he so richly deserves, so that another generation will admire and appreciate the genius of Gene Wilder.
I can tell you, you delivered your task, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you very much for your interview. Let's remember that Remembering Gene Wilder is going to be in theaters in New York next March 15th.
Great. Thank
you very much.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
You too.